As the AI era shifts, from AI tools to agentic teammates, we're helping reshape organizations forever. How they work, create new streams of value, and help get the best from and for their people. While some stand still, intelligent enterprises move faster with endless possibility. You can. You can with AI. You can with KPMG.
Since the dawn of time, history has been defined by a series of world-changing innovations. These groundbreaking moments were not always met with the appropriate levels of enthusiasm.
Well, that's the end of the raw food industry.
It's called a sale.
I don't know. We've always been more of a rowing-centric organization. We have.
I call it inoculation.
Clever, but we have a lot invested in leeches right now. There you go.
Leeches?
Well, that's the end of Shakespeare.
That's the end of their careers.
No doubt.
No more mainframes.
Well, that's the end of big data.
What is this called?
The internet.
I do not like it.
They're calling it software as a service. They think people are going to rent software?
SAP HANA. It's the end of legacy enterprise tech stacks with siloed ERP and analytics. I don't even want to imagine a world without legacy enterprise tech stacks with siloed ERP and analytics.
So we're an autonomous enterprise now. You know what that means?
It's the end.
Yeah. The end of busy work, bottlenecks, and silos, and the beginning of faster, simpler, better.
Welcome to the autonomous enterprise. It's not the end of anything. It's the beginning of better.
Good afternoon, Car MBS. How are you today? Hope everybody enjoyed your lunch. My name is Bill Newman, Industry Executive Advisor for SAP. We're delighted to be back with you. This is our 8th Power Lunch, and we're pleased to have KPMG join us again this year for our discussion on sourcing and procurement in this increasing time of uncertainty, and we've been hearing a lot about that this morning. I want to thank the folks at Center of Automotive Research. You know, we can't do this without our affiliate partnership, and we've been long-standing affiliate members with CAR. As I mentioned, we're back again. This is our 8th Power Lunch that we've done, and that goes back before the pandemic years. For me personally, it's great to see so many of you back again. This is actually my 20th MBS, so a little personal milestone there. So thanks for being part of our time and our journey together. So we have leaders today on our panel representing kind of through a role of proxy and OEM and supplier viewpoints, shaping procurement and sourcing strategy and operations in vehicle markets. For context, SAP defines vehicle markets as anything that doesn't fly or sail commercially. So it gives us a really broad net, you know, passenger vehicles, motorcycles, power sports, purpose-built vehicles, heavy commercial vehicles, and delivery-based vehicles, so a pretty wide net. Even micro-transportation applications aligned to our vehicle market strategy at SAP. Typically, vehicle markets face a lot of pressures simultaneously. They're inherently cyclical, capital-intensive, policy-sensitive, where costs are prone to swings in commodities and demand, with sensitive components like precious metals and semiconductors. And we were hearing again some of that this morning in some of our briefings across not just EV, but increasingly ICE platforms. So today we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on how macro trends and overall market dynamics impact the procurement function. We're going to look at what procurement leaders are doing to help manage risk and resilience. And then finally, how procurement leaders are using AI, have to talk about AI, to make step change to their functions and really to try to move beyond the headlines. Before I introduce our speakers on our panel today and ask, so I believe this is going to be the first panel-led Q&A that we're going to have. If you go into your, I know you've all downloaded the CAR MBS app. So when you go into the app, go into this session and there'll be a chat room. And if you would like to pose a question, we hope that we're going to get to some open Q&A at the end of our session today. And just drop some comments, be sensitive because that's a public chat room. It's not just something me as the moderator sees. So if you want to say hi, that's fine. But if you want to drop something in the chat, just be sensitive to the fact that everybody's going to see it. And I'll try to take some of those questions towards the end of our panel today. So let me begin by introducing our panel. Pretty excited. We're going to first introduce Servio Araujo. Servio is the Ford Motor Company Global Purchasing Information Executive and Director. He's an experienced leader with proven skills to manage large and global information technology operations. In his current position, Servio is responsible for managing the IT strategy, system development, and IT support for the global Ford purchasing operations. His scope includes managing the software applications portfolio, coordinating IT program management, and ensuring IT system support across all purchasing operations at Ford Motor Company. Please welcome Servio Araujo. Next up, I'd like to introduce Len Prokopets. Len is accepting the award for Tushar today, who was unfortunately able to join us. So Len is a managing director, industrial manufacturing, procurement and supply chain, part of KPMG's industrial manufacturing leadership team focused on supply chain, procurement, and aftermarket, and serves as the procurement and supply chain leader. Len brings extensive experience in automotive and operations improvement, operating model transformation, and projects across OEM and Tier 1 organizations. So please welcome Len. Thank you, Len. And then finally, we'd like to welcome Matt Blyth to the stage. Matt is a vice president within the SAP Global Procurement Center of Excellence. Matt's been a longtime trusted advisor to SAP customers for over 25 years, and his experience helped brings companies to transform their procurement and financial operations. Matt advises companies on how to leverage SAP best practices to drive measurable business outcomes across their source-to-pay business process. He has extensive experience with the entire SAP procurement solution portfolio, lots of SAP solution acronyms I'm not going to read to you right now. Matt graduated from Miami University with a bachelor's in accounting and currently resides with his family in Detroit. Please welcome Matt. Well, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Servio, welcome back. Servio is traveling to this little place over in Asia called China that everybody's been talking about this morning. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Len, for accepting the award. Matt, always a pleasure to be with you. Let's just go ahead and kick things off. And I think one of the areas that we want to start with is the big picture. Living in kind of very different times, and we talked about this concept of certain uncertainty, particularly as it relates to procurement and sourcing. And I'm excited to get into this topic today because we've had a lot of conversations around the consumer buy part of the cycle. So kind of definitely upstream in the design and corporate buy side. So from this era of certain uncertainty and where you sit, is it here to stay, or is it simply a near-term condition? Servio, we'll start with you. What's your sense?
Yeah. So for me, change always exists. I think the difference now, or maybe on the last 5 years, is the speed of the change. So how things are impacting and how they are integrated. And a lot of that for me is related to a lot of efforts that we create in this whole globalization, the technology itself. So, and as well as, the macroeconomics that are now interlinked. So for me, this is always going to accelerate. I don't think that is something that will come back to a calm down stage. Now, it's up to us to, as we accelerate, how to embrace and how to be used to that, because it's the new normal, call it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, kind of looking across our SAP automotive community, does this concept of uncertainty resonate across segments?
Absolutely. I think when you say certain uncertainty, I've even heard recently sustained disruption. It's this new normal that we're working in. I think recently COVID and coming out of the pandemic, that certainly shined a light on the importance of the procurement and supply chain function. We had unprecedented demand volatility. We had supply disruption all around the world. Since then, I mean, we continue to operate in a world that's uncertain, whether it's geopolitical risks, the uncertainty and volatility around tariffs and Section 232, whether it's labor shortages, labor strikes, union strikes, boats getting stuck in the Suez Canal. There's continual disruption, and it's the world procurement and supply chain teams need to work in now. I think historically, procurement's been focused on cost, and certainly cost management, cost optimization is a very high priority, but resiliency, assurance of supply is kind of top of mind right now to a lot of the companies we work with. And certainly also I heard a lot coming out of the pandemic, hey, we got through it through brute force. We had people rolling up their sleeves, trying to get product in the door to meet demand. Coming out of that, how do we be better? And how can we put processes, systems, tools, technology in place that allows us to better kind of plan, react, and respond to these disruptions, because they're not going away. It's sort of the new normal. We certainly see that in automotive as well as all kinds of industries.
Yeah, I mean, to your point on the geopolitical risk, I did not have Mideast war on my bingo card coming into this year. So, Len, from your perspective at KPMG, what are your own experiences, and how can you point to maybe through some of your empirical work around what we all might be feeling around this topic of uncertainty?
Thanks, Bill. So one lens to look at this through is sort of what is this doing to consumers? And what we're seeing is that now the average age of a vehicle is up to 12 years. So consumers are affected by this, and obviously this flows then downstream to OEMs and tier ones, et cetera. The uncertainty is definitely, if you think about risk and resiliency, is driving a lot of transformation efforts within our clients. And I would say that uncertainty is, let's say disruptions, are a key driver of cost issues. So if you look at, part of what's behind the consumers being slow to upgrade their vehicles is a rise in actual vehicle costs. I think that the new vehicle costs for between 20 and 25, our data says, has risen by about 30%. Part of that is driven by the materials costs themselves. And I think just in the last year, materials costs rose by about 14%. So I would say procurement has its work cut out for it to help the manufacturers and ultimately the consumers.
I think we can. I think what we've heard, and perhaps certainly what came out in this week in a new KPMG asset that you all have access to on the app, co-written with Matt's inputs in SAP, that procurement's never faced more pressure or frankly in that case more opportunities. The knowledge piece shares that C-suite pushing the enterprise to move faster becomes more resilient, procurement as a discipline, while that's happening, is being pulled into the center of many different transformation efforts, from smarter sourcing and delivery orchestration to that AI thing, AI enablement, risk resilience. In this case, meeting these expectations demand more than cost control and contract management. The paper suggests procurement needs stronger capabilities, broader influence, and deeper collaboration across the space. So Len, we'll come back to you. What do you see as the key leaders and capabilities that procurement stakeholders need to consider in this new frontier?
Thanks, Bill. So I would maybe point to the skills gap as being a very important element. KPMG just conducted a survey, as yet unpublished, covering global organizations. I think we had 51 manufacturers participate, and they called out as one of the key concern areas the skills gap that exists in procurement and supply chain. And I think the figure was 80% of organizations see the skills gap specifically in those functions. And, this manifests itself in challenges dealing with some of the risk and resiliency topics that we just talked about. Just given the fact that we don't have access to an infinite workforce, and in fact, organizations are finding it difficult to bring in new talent that has all the right skills, it means that we need to get a lot better at driving skills improvement and upskilling of the workforce around some of these new complex topics to deal with the risk and resiliency, the change, the collaboration that's needed. So those were actually some of the key gaps that were called out.
Matt, what do you see as procurement teams look to add or augment skills and capabilities given these new realities?
Yeah, I think Len brought up a really good point there. And this has been going on for a few years, where there's been somewhat of a talent shortage in procurement. And the role, if you think about the role of procurement, it's really evolved from a back office kind of transactional processing to more of a strategic kind of, we have a seat at the table. We have some pretty big meaty topics that we're focused on in procurement, and the skills required for those topics have evolved, and kind of upskilling existing talent or finding new talent. And sometimes purchasing or procurement isn't a sexy role. I think coming out of college, I think if you asked some of the CPOs, did you think you'd end up in procurement? And not a lot of people come out of college going into purchasing. And so
not your opening line in
it's not at the cocktail party and at your frat. You're probably not talking about, hey, I'm going to go into purchasing. No, but in all seriousness, the skills have evolved. So they're looking at folks that have strategic and business acumen, stronger financial and commercial acumen. So as you look at supply strategies, cost breakdowns, negotiating commercial terms, that requires a higher level of business acumen. And then now of more late is AI and digital literacy and fluency. So embracing the new tools that are available. We certainly have a workforce that's kind of aging out, me included, if you notice my gray hair. So the younger generation, bringing in younger talent that have embraced digital technologies and AI. There's always, when you think about AI and talent, there's certainly with some of the folks, people are worried that AI is going to take your job, that we're going to be removing heads. And what we're seeing is that isn't necessarily the case. It's AI is not going to take your job, but the person who knows how to use AI and has embraced AI and is using it to be more effective at their job, those are the people that you have to worry about. So you really need to embrace it. And that's certainly one of the things we're seeing from a people and talent perspective, is really how do you use AI to be more effective?
So Servio, from a OEM perspective, there are suppliers in the audience this week today. I mean, what would be some of the advice in terms of skill and talent and working together with a company like Ford? What advice might you give their organization?
I think maybe I'll echo what Matt said. I think the need for procurement today, it's not the transaction of procurement, it's the strategic thinking, the ability to collect data, connect the data, and through that data make decisions in a more, I'll call, faster and more, I'll call, holistic way, where suppliers play a role is a collaborative role. I think, we cannot be successful if we do not come together. It's key in moving forward is that procurement, it's more than, a cost conversation. It's a strategic collaboration conversation. And I think that's what I think Ford and our OEMs, and not only I'll call our industry, but in general, where procurement is going to go. And again, is that two-way street that needs to be stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I think as well, when you push into that collaboration, how important that is kind of on the front end, particularly in the product development cycle. I think that is very prescient. So Matt, you touched on it. Last year at MBS, our panel focused on business AI. The importance of AI shaping the vehicle market today, how it is operationally managed is even more important. So let's address that head on. AI, where do you see companies leveraging AI for procurement function? And Servio, I'll come back to you, and maybe you can kind of speak in general terms about how you see AI providing an influence in the procurement function, maybe on a more process basis beyond what we were just talking about in terms of skills and talent.
Start with me. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think going back to the point about what it means to be a buyer today, it is this importance of connecting the dots. And the ability to integrate a very dispersed of the data and data from internal and data from external and macro elements, it comes to the need to have someone that helps you or some tools to help you. And that's why I think why AI play a role is really to complement your ability to understand, make decisions more clear, and aggregate data in a such way that you can adjust your strategy in a faster pace. That's, I think, what's the transformation element in how, AI helps. We in Ford are investing heavily at how to understand. The importance point on that is, again, it's not only the tool itself, but the foundation of which data you use to make the decisions. And that's what I think we also putting a lot of emphasis about, ensure that we have the right data so that the data itself, through the use of those tools, allows you to make the proper decision. So we're working the two fronts. So the front of building the foundation, build the semantics, build the ontology to support, an easy way to extract data from multiple sources, as well as the ability to allow you to drive proper inquiries with agents or other set of tools that then you can make the community that supports procurement more, I'll call, skilled to make the decisions in a very fluid mode.
Len, what's your perspective from KPMG?
Thanks, Bill. So it's interesting, while Servio and Matt both talked about a lot of the strategic aspects and let's say the more sophisticated, commercially minded, collaboration oriented and business acumen oriented procurement work. In fact, there is actually still the heavy lifting, grunt work, so to speak, that has to be done. So AI has a significant role to play there, as well as to enable some of the strategic work. So the way I would bucket this, and I'll allude again to the KPMG study that will be published shortly. What we heard from organizations that they're really bucketing AI into two buckets. One is the assisting humans bucket. So essentially helping procurement professionals do work like aggregating data, doing analysis, producing reports and outputs to serve some of the stuff that Servio was describing. The second is the automation or autonomy. So that there are processes and activities within organizations that probably ideally never should have been done by people. There are things that are somewhat repetitive and there's a high volume of them and they're not necessarily value added, but they need to be done. So I would give an example like tail spend management. The perhaps thousands of suppliers that don't necessarily create strategic value, but need to be managed in some way. So what we saw from the study is that 40% of organizations are really focusing on the enablement part of AI. So using AI to help their procurement professionals do their jobs better, essentially. And I think that fits into a lot of what Servio was describing. And the second is the autonomy aspect. And 55% of organizations are striving towards a moderate or higher level of autonomy for a lot of their processes going forward. So I would translate that into not necessarily removing humans from the procurement function, but as taking on some of the work that, frankly, is not no one really has the time to do, or frequently doesn't get done to a complete level, like managing the entire tail end of the suppliers, tracking indices, and so on. That just requires a ton of ongoing activity.
Matt, thoughts on the big AI topic?
What's that? No, I think Len and Servio have made some really good points. I see with a lot of the customers we talk to, some of the low hanging fruit relates to just driving buyer efficiency or productivity. So basically, whether it's collecting information, pulling data together, taking work away from the buyer so they can focus on more strategic activities. One customer, an OEM that I was working with, one use case they had was, and it actually related when Elizabeth was doing her the 6 S's on China, or the
6 S's?
6 S's on China, where she was talking about speed and why does it take so long for us to do RFQs, and why is it 8 weeks and then an additional 8 weeks? And this OEM was looking at AI and using agentic AI to help prepare sourcing decision awards. And so in this case, if you're a commodity buyer and you're doing an award for a big vehicle program, for this OEM, it took 3 weeks for the buyer to pull together all the information to build a PowerPoint to present to leadership to get approval on his award. So if you think about it, there's the cost and the price. So understanding the cost breakdowns, the cost drivers, but there's a lot of other factors. So looking at resiliency, looking at the performance of the supplier, looking at the quality of the supplier, looking at the supply markets than other suppliers that you should have looked at. But pulling that all together was taking buyers about 3 weeks just to summarize data that was in different systems. And they're like, why can't an agent, so agentic AI is the term, why can't an agent go across these different systems, pull together all the data, summarize it, and give a buyer a starting point? And in this case, going from 3 weeks to minutes, seconds, minutes, hours, maybe a day or two. And that was a real proof point. And if you think about it, every commodity in a car, that we could collapse the cycle from the buyer's perspective, but likewise, that should trickle down to the tier 1s, tier 2s. But that would be an opportunity to apply AI to just speed up the time it takes for people to do their job. And it, again, like I said earlier, AI, what we're seeing, they're not replacing people. They're making people more better. That's more effective at their job. And also, Len mentioned tail spend. We've seen that, and often that's in maybe non-production or say MRO spend. You may have a lot of suppliers out there that procurement is not necessarily touching or vetting or negotiating the pricing, but that's where you could have an autonomous sourcing agent kind of negotiating terms within the guidelines and procurement policies you've trained the agent on. So there are some use cases that companies are looking at that a year ago kind of seemed a little far-fetched, and now they're kind of realities with companies. So,
yeah, great example. Yeah. Just a reminder to the audience as we begin to wrap up our prepared Q&A, if you'd like to participate in the open Q&A, to please go to the app, select the session, and send us a comment. So let's do a quick prediction round. So in one sentence, what will define the modern sourcing and procurement enterprise for the balance of 2026? Len, we'll start with you.
I think all signs point to better understanding and management of resilience.
Matt?
The modern procurement organization will be data-driven, AI-enabled, focused on cost, resiliency, innovation, and growth.
Matt, I just got a bingo on my management consulting words.
There we go.
From your sentence. Well done. Servio.
Well, not to be repetitive, but to kind of emphasize some piece that I think both Len and Matt mentioned. Visibility, collaboration, as well as, data-driven. That's what I think the procurement will be. And I think it has to be, I'll call end-to-end. I mean, it cannot be considered only the first tier, but you have to understand the entire supply chain. That's what I think is going to define the procurement moving forward.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to take a little time to look through the open Q&A, but while I'm processing that, I want to throw it to Matt, maybe just to kind of share with the audience a little bit of background around autonomous enterprise. We saw a clip of that coming in with the walk-in video. Maybe you can just take a moment to frame that in the context of business and the procurement organization, and then we'll jump into some of your questions.
Yeah. So the video that we had with autonomous enterprise is kind of the latest kind of technology stack that SAP is bringing to market to help you run your enterprise. And it's really focused on embedding AI across the end-to-end business processes, so that you have AI-powered processes that are running on end-to-end processes with common data that has common business semantics or business context. And one of the things we've seen with a lot of our customers that have done pilots of AI, it's tough to get those AI pilots to really scale across the enterprise because you need good, clean data that you can rely on, that you can trust. And that's one of the things with SAP. We feel we're in a fortunate position because we have kind of end-to-end processes that are generating consistent data that you can rely on, that you can govern, that you can ensure has the right level of security and access to drive AI at scale across the enterprise. So within procurement, we're embedding AI and building these agents that will help buyers, category managers, accounts payable professionals do their job more effectively. So you could have, say, an assistant, a sourcing assistant that's really understanding the supply markets, understanding your demand, making recommendations to buyers, perhaps even creating sourcing events, reaching out to suppliers, doing processes on your behalf. But it's still early. I mean, there's certainly going to be humans in the loop. Some of it seems a little out in outer space, if you will, but some of it is real that is available today to drive outcomes. But one of the big things is having it run on data that you can rely on and trust across the enterprise. And that's SAP. We're all in on AI and building AI across all the different processes.
Super. Thanks to those of you who are starting to submit comments. Appreciate that. This kind of touches on, Matt, your comment. This is a question from Jose. How do we promote value-add automated decision-making tools where costs will become a key aspect to focus on? I think capabilities are all driven into that. I think, Matt, you kind of set the tone on that. Maybe, Len, you want to add to that?
I would say part of it is the interest and willingness of the leadership team to actually discuss those things. So, I think one of the challenges is where the overriding focus is the price. The conversation and analysis tends to focus on the price, and in fact, a lot of the other factors drive part of what I would view as total cost. And those are not necessarily visible in the quoted price, but ultimately become visible in the operations of the business. So the richer dialogue around the expected outcomes is, I think, what then drives the right behavior.
I think that also drives to this new aspect of consumption level, right? I could have a budget for my automated AI tools, and I encourage everybody to use it. And all of a sudden, 3 months later, I'm already at my annual budget threshold, right? We're starting to see So maybe the adoption needs to be tamed a little bit. Servio, you have a comment on that?
No, I agree with you. I think we're still in this early stage to understand how to consume AI in the company. I think one of the challenge for us is going to be to create an ecosystem that allows you to inquire, but at the same time does not become more expensive than human beings that could do that job. I think that's the sort of the point of learning. I think we're still in that seeking to understand and normalizing before we can kind of jump. But it goes in a fast pace. I think this will come in a very, very fast pace.
Yeah. Kind of following the hype curve jump.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. We'll take one more question. This one's from Luke, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I'm going to toss this one to you, Matt. It really speaks more broadly in terms of software as a service and across different functions. And what do we see as kind of like the future with AI? And I guess I would maybe add to that from an SAP perspective, how more and more we're encouraging companies to integrate at the data level rather than build pipes between applications. But maybe you could, is this the death of software as a service?
Well, I have a couple kids to put through college, so no. I think you need an application layer that is generating the data for AI to run. And maybe I'm biased. Well, I am biased, but you need a system of record. Like, at the end of the day, if you're talking financial accounting, I mean, you need a place that you're posting to the ledger. You need you need a system of record you can rely on, whether it's relating to production orders or purchase orders or sales orders. So I think the if you look at a global company, all the global requirements and regulatory requirements around closing your books and generating financial statements in AI, you can't just do that without kind of a system of record. So I think there's always going to be an application layer that's generating data that AI is going to be using. And I think in our opinion is having AI embedded in the process in presenting data in the context of people doing their work. Because you need to reimagine how your processes will run with AI. So what I always challenge customers with is don't take current process and just throw AI on it. Reimagine, rethink how that process should run with this new technology. There was one, what was it? I was talking to, it was one of the largest chemical companies in the world, and their head of digital transformation said to me, Matt, you know what PP plus NT equals? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, that equals EPP. He's like, poor process plus new technology equals expensive poor process. And I think with AI, it's very similar. I mean, you need to really kind of look at your process. Is that how the process should run now that we have this new technology like AI? So it's an opportunity for you to kind of reimagine work. And I think having partners, not only SAP, but other partners that have applications in your space is a good way to kind of partner with to reimagine.
Yeah, beware of the hallucinations. They can be real and they can happen faster. Well, I want to thank our panel. Before we leave you today, I do want to share a few pieces of information for you. So first of all, we alluded to the new white paper published by KPMG with SAP. That's now available to download. It's also on your app. We'd also like to continue the conversation, a couple of different options here. There'll be a reception at the Reuters Supply Chain Conference next week in Chicago for some of you who might be attending. So please take advantage of the QR code here. And then finally, SAP is proud to return to Detroit in September for our Fall Connect Day for automotive. The registration is now open. We'll have some announcements to make regarding our agenda. But we'd love to have you, and you don't need to be an SAP customer to attend. It is open to the industry, and we're also hoping to welcome in Center of Automotive Research for a kickoff around the state of the industry for that briefing. With that, I want to thank Matt, Len, Servio. Pleasure. Thanks to everybody here for attending. Hope you enjoyed your lunch and have a great rest of your conference. Thank you very much.